So, tail end of a cold. So, first of all, I want to thank Ben and Helen and the board of the tree reading series. It's a big pleasure to be invited back here to read, and I'm just delighted to be able to do that. And it's a great series, and long may it continue. So yeah, sotto voce, that is the pronunciation, at least the way we pronounce it in English. And lots and lots of people have asked me what sotto voce means. So we actually put a definition in the front of the book. But essentially it's like a stage direction in opera or theater, and it asks the actor or singer to step out of their role and address the audience in a lowered voice about the shenanigans that are going on behind him or her on stage. And the idea is by lowering your voice, you're actually emphasizing the truth. So this is a book that plays a lot with quietness and loudness, so as maybe you'll get to see. So I'll start with the poem, Sotto Voce. It's one that incorporates a few quotes from Jack Spicer's poetry, and it also, I wrote it after seeing something called the Whisper Opera by David Lang in Toronto. It was an extraordinary opera for its set, but also for the fact that the singers all sang in a whisper, which is pretty hard on the voice, but it was a wonderful evening. So, sotto voce. When you whisper everything, when even your saxophone whispers its notes, when you just graze your fingertips across the drum skin for a drumly quietness, or the words on your sheet lower their volume to minimal, when you forswear aloud for the everyday language of small rivers, today the dawn is open, free-flowing and black, not closed and frozen white. When the scratchy hushes under the thickening ice become fainter and fainter, when you whisper everything, vows and regrets, sweet nothings and morsels of shame, or just the abundant mundanities of your life, listeners strain to catch your watery drift. They follow your eyes. Your breath is a hand resting on a baby's naked chest. After the breath stops, Spicer says the words, listen. At the end of the evening's whispering, an old neighbor said all she could hear was the eulogy for my mother from 30 years ago. You are always hearing your own all the way down past the future, louder and more audible than murmurs that go swimming past you as if they were blue fish. So the next poem, like all of us, I'm pretty disturbed by what's happening with the climate catastrophe. So this is a poem that addresses it, and again, I've borrowed some lines. These two lines for the title are from John Ashbery. The climate is pretty. I wrote everything on it. Course outlines, recipes for candy apples and puttanesca. Figured out how much I owed Bell Canada and the repairman who replaced the flood-softened drywall. Typed out postcard, postcard fiction, scribbled thank you cards and rough drafts of unsayable condolences, and of course, cloudy notes of self-doubt. Sweet nothings in Neruda's green ink. Even attempted the silver and gilt of illuminated manuscripts and several charcoal drawings of prehistoric animals like those in Chauvet and Lascaux. Uncertain, I feared the medium, its impermanence. But climate is a forgiving surface. Like a magic slate, you can lift up a layer, start all over again. No one will be the wiser. Fog, cloud banks, ice shelves, climate, always moving, and by God, sometimes theatrically. It's pretty hard to write on a tornado day. A deluge day, barely. A month of fires, not at all. My efforts with the climate tablet have been instructive. Pretty, yes, and changeable, as you'd expect. But it's best if you match your task to the weather But the shrinking canvas of glacier and snow, you can write encyclopedias on it, though your entries will get shorter and shorter. In Toronto, a group of poets, 4 or 5 of us, have started doing river poetry walks with a wonderful organization in Toronto called Lost Rivers Toronto, and it's led by this wonderful woman, Helen Mills. They chart the buried and lost rivers that exist under the streets of Toronto that have been paved over and filled in, and sometimes been transformed into sewers. Toronto is a floodplain, and so there are lots and lots of these buried rivers that, first were very contaminated by industry, and then we've lost them. This particular poem, High Watermark, was one that we, from a river walk that we did on a river that isn't lost, that's actually fairly healthy, the Humber River in Toronto. And again, I borrowed some quotes from someone. This is Bonnie Devine, who's an Indigenous artist who lives in Toronto and teaches in Toronto. High Watermark. We descend the steel stairs, look up to where the hurricane slid her hand up the bridge's tower. Walk beneath the wavy high water mark and remember that the river's always been that deep. Join anglers, gulls, and cormorants, each on a private quest. Absorb a sudden patience, the swerve of dragonflies, trace pre-glacial watercourses, their stops and turns and signs. The land's a living thing, said Bonnie Devine. In a mural she painted the Great Lakes red, the continent's heart, its arteries, the rivers, water in dispute. Always in dispute still. Someone's poisoned a tiny brook flowing through this park to the river, turned it rust red, poured in an oily brine that floats atop. We could crouch and light it like a long fuse. Beyond, midstream waders snap and reel their fishing lines, knotweed and nuthatches, trout lily and thorns. On a sunlit log, a morning cloak butterfly fans and folds her wings. A corroded hubcap on the ground mirrored to a dried-out stump, its rings cracked apart. We gathered broken glass and bottle caps and bits of styrofoam, leave behind rusty runoff and swirling cream sludge, juncos and flickers, the glittering river afternoon. Above us, a man sings a Verdi aria, floats it over all of us from the bridge. So the next poem is also relates a bit to climate issues, but this time takes its title from, it's called Inside Hazel, and it's not about a woman, it's about Hurricane Hazel. That hit Toronto in 1952 and did a lot of damage. But it was a hurricane that kind of swept up from the eastern seaboard up through New York State and into Toronto. And so there was a very interesting event that I read about that happened during, and the author, Jane Rule, people know her? That is where she didn't meet her partner because they taught at the same academy, but they sort of, this is where it all got started. Jane Rule, of course, is quite a famous novelist and an incredible activist and beacon for queer issues. And she died in 2007. She lived on Galliano Island, inside Hazel. The morning after that hurricane, 81 dead. My father drove us to the ravine's edge where the small city-tamed river below had surged, swallowed buildings, collapsed bridges, half a house crumpled into the river, an outer wall sheared off, cross-sectioned like my dollhouse, but enormous and aloft. No one died here, but did that family ever sleep again? We looked up to the second floor, floral wallpaper around a bathroom sink and mirror, 2 red towels hanging on a towel rack. Usually when a tsunami or forest fire turns inside out, what tumbles free are widows and crushed limbs, a wooden trestle bridge burned to blackest ash, an ocean fear-stained by nuclear waste. But inside Hazel was also born a lifelong romance, a hurricane that stopped the train in its tracks for hours, and that's where Jane and Helen, two teachers at the same academy, found they were more than colleagues, began a 45-year journey. This one is called What Happened to the Danceable Jazz. Peculiar to wake up into a January morning so full of roses. Dashed into a florist yesterday and splurged $8 whole on an iffy but still impeccably peach-hued bouquet. My gardener friend says it takes a lot of pesticides to grow a perfect rose. Does the rose recall the woman who inhaled toxic spray in a Colombian greenhouse, who lost her job when she got pregnant and then miscarried? The person who clipped its thorns, packed and shipped it. Hey, buddy, says the dad to his 4-year-old, both walking ahead of me on Brunswick Avenue. Hey, look at this. Pulling a yellow rose out of the snow-crusted yew hedge and presenting it long-stemmed to his son with an overhead arm swirl. Maybe an unwanted gift stashed last night by a woman who spurned her lover or the growers and took it out on the rose. Would you like to live your life as in a lingerie or a flower shop? All that fragrance and beauty, yes. But then no dancing, and so many discards wilting at the end of the day. No guarantees, said the woman behind the counter. Put the stems in hot water, stern, like that. I'd like to dance gin glimmering into the blue evening in Paris mama bottle of perfume, starlit and evanescent, a day dancer, a night dancer with a fireplace of sunset waves behind us, a little breeze up and glasses clinking, so much more pep than modern jazz, that big band gardenia sound that lasted way too long but still faded much too soon. Tuesday will turn to bitter cold. I have 2 poems in this book that have similar titles. Are You Ladies Lost? And Are You Ladies Lost 1? And Are You Ladies Lost 2? It came from an event that my partner and I were coming back from the gym early on a Sunday morning in January, and we heard a robin, so we looked up and we were looking for the robin, and these 2 men came towards us and said, "Are you ladies lost?" So that's the inspiration. Are you ladies lost too? Oh no, we are not lost. We are just hesitating under the leafless trees, wishing we were in New York or Malaga or Melbourne. We are finding it hard to move, as we are wishing Franco had come to a more deserving end, not to mention Henry Kissinger or the Bushes, Junior and Senior, and that other newer one. We are assembling our spray cans to spray graffiti on railway sidings to repel DOT 111 rail cars. Oh no, we're not lost. But we do have a kind of science fiction look on our faces. Not lost, but perhaps losing, well, maybe a little lost. But pausing to count the moths and ladybugs, one of whom I found in my hydroponic lettuce this week. You are a local ladybug, I said to the colorful pill-like corpse. You were born and died here, which makes you friendly and heroic and well-fed. We are scanning the sky for drones, as everyone must these days. The animal extinction count is troubling us. Oh no, we are not very lost, but we are grateful for your concern. And as I said, the book plays a bit with the issues of quietness and loudness. So I want to read Speak Now. Can't seem to find that.
Page 6.
There it is. Thank you. I couldn't find page 6 actually. So Speak Now. Speak now into the metal mesh. Jiggle the puzzle till the parts fall to the floor. Drag the presidents out for a share of the pain. Roll the dice and scoop the children out of their sandy shoreline graves. Every era sails the coffin ships. How many can the fiberglass boats hold before they crack in two? Mercy is failing. The GPS is failing. Speak now. And I'm going to read from my last poem, Where Does My Love Stop? Daily, my love stops, traces the sorrow segments etched into the turtle's shell, stops to count how many sunflower petals on a tall stalk, the sudden way breath can cease, then starts filling the wild gourd with clean water as Cyclone Pam, Category 5, keeps pouring and pouring and pouring. Hospital operating rooms filling halfway up their walls with muddy water stops, as you did this morning in the kitchen. The pine cone opened and small angry seeds fell out, scattered all over the floor, and somehow sprouted tenderness in the cracks between ceramic tiles. Love starts breathing again because of the wet lilac branches, starts despite the dynamite stick of injustice. The bridge to compassion intact, we can still cross. My love reclad in a length of deep blue cotton, hemmed with silver thread. Thank you very much.